Welcome to the Futurecast episode. This started as a gap to fill the void during COVID because we could not have Startup Iceland, but now it is starting to take a shape of its own. The Futurecast episodes was started to talk to interesting guests on how to build the future. So we're going one step further with these new formats where we're talking to people who are helping founders who are building the future. Today we have a guest called Bára Kristgeirsdóttir. She is a designer and a brand builder. She's been working with founders on how to kind of get to the core of what they're doing. Looking forward to talking to her and learning from her what should founders focus on. So welcome. Hi Bára.
Yeah. Hi, Bala, and thank you for inviting me here to the podcast. I'm honored to be the first one in picture, even though I didn't do my hair.
You look
But
great.
yes. So yeah, I'm from Iceland, and I moved to Sweden 7 years ago. Before that, I studied graphic design in Iceland in
Mm-hmm.
the Art Academy, Listaháskóli Íslands,
Mm-hmm.
where got in lo- I fell in love with branding actually, and like
Mm-hmm.
how to connect with users, and like
Mm-hmm.
what are the yeah like and to figure out strategies to that. So yeah, and that brought me no in Iceland I started working for like agencies as a graphic designer, and in 2016 I moved to Sweden. Just we took a leap of faith and we kind of sold everything and went to Sweden. Yeah, that was quite a journey actually,
Where in Sweden did you move to?
We moved to Stockholm.
Stockholm. Oh,
My
wonderful.
partner went to KTH to
Mm-hmm.
study.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just quit my job and, took a leap of faith and went to Stockholm without knowing anyone or anything.
Like most Icelanders did when they left Norway about 1,500 years back.
Exactly.
More than 1,000 years back, yeah. So tell me more about the stuff that you did in Sweden. I know a lot of different things led you to starting to work with founders and startups. So tell me more there.
Yeah. So, I mean, coming here to Sweden and, thinking that Iceland is of course, coolest and greatest, I thought it would be super easy to get a job. People were like, aha, do you have advertising agencies in Iceland? So it was quite a slap in the face. So, I had to hustle and hustle.
Hmm.
And that led me I got my first job for a startup company,
Hmm.
which, yeah, I was hired to help them with the branding.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's how I got into that. That's like 2016. And
How big was that startup? How many people were there?
um, they was like a one founder. It was a product, it was like a jewelry brand,
Hmm.
actually.
Hmm.
And they actually were really soon to do growth hacking.
Hmm.
So they got like a lot of success with their marketing efforts in performance marketing,
Hmm.
which is really interesting. Yeah, so I think we were a group of like 10 people
Hmm.
around that. Yeah.
All right. So they made jewelry and they sold it online. Is that what they did?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
exactly.
All right.
And I mean, yeah, they grew really, really, really fast. They got like a lot of followers because they had like amazing strategy
Mm-hmm.
online,
Mm-hmm.
to connect with people. So yeah, but unfortunately, they're not here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's how
so
it goes.
so growing fast is not the only requirement to actually build a viable startup, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
No,
that's
I
lesson
think
number one.
I think that was also like this startup, what do I say, like dilemma, or like, this founder's dilemma when they can't let go
Mm-hmm.
of their like little baby.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hired to help with the branding, but still that owner he wanted to be in charge of like all the design and everything, but without the knowledge. He didn't trust. So like that is happens a lot when I worked with startups.
All right. No, I mean the founder journey, the startup journey is not a straight path. There are lots of twists and turns you need to take, and branding as a broad concept at the early stage doesn't really make sense, at least from my uh, seat. Is that the reason for that is that at the early stage you really don't know who your customer segment is, because branding is about promise and you're delivering a promise to a group of people, and you need to know what that group of people are, who are they, and why do they need to take you seriously, and so on and so forth. So tell me a little bit more about, at least, let's move forward from the
Yep.
startup that you started working with, but you
Yeah,
started working more with the accelerator. Tell me more about that
exactly.
journey. Why did you choose to go there, and what was the experience there?
Yeah. So I just finished my master's in Hyper Island, where I studied digital management, and I
Mm-hmm.
focused on branding for startups actually,
Mm-hmm.
because that has been, because yeah, in from my experience, it has been like this. I've been hired as a designer for startups to get their product out, but
Mm-hmm.
it is always the same problem that comes up when we're gonna get the product out, like make marketing material. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
who are we? Who are we
Mm-hmm.
talking to? What's our language? You
Mm-hmm.
know? So it has often been that like a lot of startups, they're spending money at the
Mm-hmm.
wrong places to begin
Mm-hmm.
with.
Mm-hmm.
So with my thesis, I was like, okay, I want to contribute to startups because that was always the case. They didn't have money, you
Mm-hmm.
know, the the capacity to actually invest in branding.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to talk about branding. I'm going to research branding for startups. And actually, if that is the key to success
Mm-hmm.
for startups, because yeah, 90% of startups fail. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, could there be something with branding that could help?
Right.
And then what actually comes up to begin with is that the word brand and branding has so many different meanings for different people.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first thing to kind of research, is like and make it clear what is
Mm-hmm.
what
Mm-hmm.
for founders.
Right.
So I teamed up with Sting,
Mm-hmm.
which is the startup incubator in Stockholm.
Mm-hmm.
And
And what does Sting do? So they are an accelerator and incubator for startups. And how many startups go through the Sting program?
oof, I mean, I think they have like three programs actually. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
but now they've actually also started this startup academy,
Mm-hmm.
actually, where they actually teach, yeah, where they teach
Mm-hmm.
everything about entrepreneurship, or like what to, and how to.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So, what were, if you had to give, we talked about two things as useful information for founders, which is the first one was, just because you grew fast does not make a viable company, because the first startup that you worked with didn't survive. And the second one was, having an idea around brand building. So tell
mm,
me in your words, so what should brand mean from a startup founder point of view? What should they think about when they think about branding?
yeah. So what I figured out with my research and is that of course not all startup companies need the same amount of branding.
Mm-hmm.
When I talk about branding, it's to define your vision and your
Mm-hmm.
mission and your goals and your purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and then to figure out who are your audience, how are you going to reach them, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So what I said and what I focused on, because Sting, they have this deep tech
Mm-hmm.
companies, which I wouldn't say that there's like a crazy need for like a full-on branding.
Mm-hmm.
But with that said, in my mind, I think that all founders need to have their personal brand, personal story, and to know why you're doing what you're doing, to know your core.
Mm-hmm.
That's always gonna serve you,
Mm-hmm.
Not only if you have an audience, that you're trying to reach, also if you want to reach investors,
Mm-hmm.
to have a solid story and purpose.
Right. Not just investors, I would say that having a very clear clarity around why you're doing something is also an important element to actually convince your co-founders and employees to join you, because you want talented people to work with you, and usually talented people have many options, so they don't need to give up working for Google to come and join your startup if you don't have a strong enough purpose. So I think the point of trying to know what your core is very important, and having clarity is very important. All right,
Yeah.
so I've figured out what my core is as a founder. So what's the next step in branding? What should I do? What I mean,
Well,
is it all about graphic design and colors and fonts, or what
no,
is it
it's
more?
not about that. That's the thing.
Right.
And that's like, because in my research, I interviewed a lot of startups, that were both in the STEAM program, and also that were not, or even the ones who had actually finished the program.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of founders, they were like, yeah, I mean, we have a brand, and that meant like, so they only talk about the visuals,
Mm-hmm.
So that was really interesting to me. I was like, yeah, okay, well, that's not actually, that's because we talk about brand identity,
Mm-hmm.
and then we talk about visual identity,
Mm-hmm.
and then we talk about verbal identity.
Mm-hmm.
So the process for me and what I came up with from my research is that I created a framework
Mm-hmm.
for startups, which is a step-by-step guide for like the whole team,
Mm-hmm.
founding team, to work on, to align.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so everybody has the same, vision and mission and the purpose for the business.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and with that strategy, that's where we do like the customer analysis, and we also find where those customers are, how you're going to reach them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like I designed this framework where you go to these 3 steps. The first step is this core,
Mm-hmm.
the brand core, where you like find out your vision, your mission, and your purpose. And I also I explain what is your vision. I like, why do you need to do a vision and mission and purpose? Because a lot of those founders that I spoke to, they're like, yeah, we've done that. We've done vision and mission and purpose, but they didn't know why,
Mm-hmm.
what purpose that was to write that
Mm-hmm.
down.
So why should founders do that again?
Why should they have a vision?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, your vision is your northern star,
Mm-hmm.
the direction to go, and your mission is how you're gonna live the purpose and reach the vision.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, I actually looked a lot into Simon Sinek
Mm-hmm.
and this like what, how, why.
Mm-hmm.
So like why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually like, yeah. So when I work with companies, it's like, it's so important to know why, what drives you, the purpose of
Mm-hmm.
your business.
Right.
Why, how, and what.
Right.
What, how, why. Yeah. The first step is this brand core, where you find your vision, mission, and purpose. The second step is like where you create your brand personality, your persona.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find your brand personality and your values. From there, you go to the positioning, the brand position, like the audience,
Mm-hmm.
and the competitor analysis and the market.
Mm-hmm.
And then like possible touch points, where to actually, find them
Right. That's
and
great.
reach
I
them.
think, obviously, we can talk about all this for a long time, but I also think that you've done a thesis. That means you spent considerable amount of time thinking about it. To all our audience and founders, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah. So I actually I just started my creative studio. It's called See You Next Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Studio,
Okay.
dot studio. And I have like I really want to help all startups with this framework and contribute to kind of like, yeah, really and especially I really what do I say? Like I would love for women also to, because that's also like what drove me is like because women they get so much less funding than male startups. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna contribute to the
Right.
females.
Right. So,
Entrepreneur.
I mean, it's interesting you should say that because I was just talking to another friend of mine around the notion of diversity and how funding is disproportionately distributed. My own personal view, because I am an investor and I do this day in day out, is that I don't believe that it's good to look at averages. I think it's in the world of venture, averages are a terrible way to look at anything, because the venture world is a superstar world. That means winner take all. It is a power law world, and averages are very bad metrics to look at. You should look at the outliers, and in the outliers, successful founders who have gone on to build great companies, you see that there are breakthrough founders or women founders who have done exceptionally well. For example, the founder of Canva, she was a girl from Australia. She basically breaks all the patterns because it was a boyfriend girlfriend who started the startup. Most venture investors look at that as some kind of a bad thing. So there are always exceptions and outliers to all these patterns. To all my fellow VCs, I say if you're investing through patterns, you're kind of missing the forest for the trees. The
Yeah.
the big idea is to really look to people who are working on really hard problems, because venture is about that, right? Solving some hard problems. That's why it's called a venture. Like, 1,000 years ago, your ancestors who left Norway got on the longboat, or maybe it wasn't even a longboat. Maybe they built it after they came to Iceland. It was a venture. They didn't know where they were going. They didn't know whether they'll survive. They actually ventured out and they actually took a chance on moving forward. And that led to the country of Iceland today. That's how
Yeah.
venture should be. And I think we try to democratize everything. I think that's a terrible way to look at the world. The world doesn't, we need to have democracy in governments, but funding and all of that is not a democratic process. It needs to go to those who actually are working on hard things. That's how it should be. And my recommendation to you when you work with women founders or you talk to any of them is to encourage them to take on hard problems, because if you work on hard
Yeah.
problems and you solve it, guess what? Money will flow. That's never been the problem, at least as I see it. But
Yeah.
thanks you again for taking this time for talking to us in our first Zoom episode of Futurecast. And as I said, I think the topic that you're working on is very important. I think founders need to work on the core, need to have clarity, need to have
Yeah.
a lot of things. And you mentioned that a lot of startups fail. Obviously, there are too many booby traps. That's why most startups fail. And the idea is to kind of try to give the cheat sheet for each of the booby traps. And one of that is, the thesis and research that you've been working on, which is how to actually put frameworks around what you're working on and align it with your
Yeah.
customers, align it with your purpose, and align it with how to execute. So thank
Yeah.
you for doing that. So
But just to kind of,
final
and sorry.
final words. Tell me final words.
No, I just also wanted to say that like it's not like everybody, like I said, not all founders and startups need the same. So what I do is that, people reach out to me and we have a look together. We have a discovery meeting where we
Mhm.
kind of look at like, where are you? What do you need? So not all business need the same thing.
Sure.
Do you need a brand audit?
Mhm.
Do we need to look at what's going on and what needs to be fixed? And
Mhm.
so it's yeah, exciting times ahead.
I mean, the world is building more startups all over the place, so I'm pretty sure you will be inundated with requests from founders. So I wish you luck and thanks for taking the time to do this. With that, I say goodbye and keep in touch.
Yeah, thank you, Bala,
Thank
and hello to Iceland in the sun.
Yeah, thank you. Bye. So that was a great episode to talk about how to build a brand and how to get to your core. Um, Now, look forward to hearing your comments and don't forget to subscribe to our Startup Iceland channel. We're going to have a lot of interesting conversations on how to help founders build the future. Thank you.